Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to have a little bit of a discussion regarding Bretonnia and a really cool mod which is quite expensive and also has two submods which will allow for you to tailor how much you actually want from this. So this is Lily's Bretonnia Overhaul Definitive Edition. This is a very popular mod. I also covered the Warhammer 2 variant and some things have changed as it goes, but it still remains as adding some much needed flavor to Bretonnia as they've kind of suffered, not because they're a FLC race, yes, Bretonnia is completely free, but more because they were a Warhammer 1 race, so a lot of attention has not really gone to them. And while we do know that in the future, Creative Assembly might do something with Bretonnia, as they've already stated they want to be able to do Foot Knights and Truffle Hounds and stuff, but until then, mods come to the rescue, and Lily is a fantastic modder. I've covered her stuff in the past. So let's just jump right in and check out the changes here. So there's a few changes to the faction effects of every playable character at the moment. So King Leonka has the following changes. Recruitment cost -10 for Grail Knights and Grail Guardians. Unit capacity +3 for all Royal Men-at-Arms units. These are new units coming with a mod, and there's a sub-mod which adds even further, but it's still part of the same overhaul. Either way, the recruitment cost for the end game type of knights is going to be quite useful as they are fairly expensive and money is a little bit of an issue as you're spending a lot of that usually confederating with the other Bretonnian factions. Alberic is getting a few additions here. Leadership +4 for foot squire units, melee attack +4 for foot squire units, and weapon strength +10% for foot squire units. This might not sound like the most exciting thing, but keep in mind that you're in Lustria now, and your cavalry is going to have a bit of an issue every now and then trying to get a charge off, especially with maps with loads of trees or just very strange terrain, so having a few extra foot troops is going to be very, very useful to you. Only one extra addition here for the Fey Enchantress, but it is a good one. Peasant economy +8 peasants available to the faction. This means that you'll be able to get more spearmen if you need it, or more archers at the very beginning of your campaign, and it will be quite helpful for you considering that, well, you've got Morga to your south, who is usually quite aggressive. Clan Scryer is also right next to you. Grom is literally right next to you, so that becomes a bit of a problem. And right now with the diplomacy issues, you know, the Wood Elves kind of go genocidal very early into your campaign, so this will make it a little bit less of a slog. Only one change so far with Repanse de Leonesse, which is physical resistance +5% for all peasant units. This is going to make things a little bit more durable, considering that, well, there's a lot of dead things that are trying to kill you. Now, keep in mind that things will change if you decide to use a submod where things will get a little bit more complex for Repanse, but we'll talk about that a little later. The tech tree itself has been expanded with 17 new technologies, and they do a variety of different things. This is to just flesh out the tech tree a bit more, give you some more upkeep reduction for some things, some boost for the new units that you have access to, and also just some extra money with farms. In general, it's going to be there mostly to boost up your men-at-arms. You're going to see a bit of everything. Honestly, it's going to just give you a little bit of a boost that Bretonnia kind of needs because their tech tree is really small. It's interesting how a lot of Warhammer 1 races have very small tech trees when compared to everything else. And the economy boost is very, very much welcome as it just helps you get a little bit more cash flow coming in, especially if you focus this early on. As, yeah, you know, Bretonnia, you need to spend a lot of money or chivalry, but mostly money when you're confederating the other factions, so every little bit helps. But this is where we can talk about some changes to the buildings so far. There will be more in the future. This has been stated by Lily on the mod page, but so far you're going to get less money from the farms. I know, that sounds a bit weird, but that means because all the peasantry is working on the farms. If you decide to go for industry instead, though, you'll be able to get more peasant economy, meaning that you'll get more peasants, and yeah, that's going to help out quite a bit, especially early on where you need as many peasants as possible. You're going to want to be able to, you know, get as many as you can with not just taking settlements, because sometimes it's a slow grow when it comes to this. It definitely feels better, and it means that you can get armies up and running without too much of an issue. And again, with the whole diplomacy system with Warhammer 3 where everyone's kind of declaring war on you early, especially in harder difficulties, you kind of want this going as fast as possible. So you will also notice on the base mod you have access to two new units, which are the Royal Men-at-Arms, and these are available in the same building, so you'll get there, you'll be able to unlock them as you get to tier 4, well, tier 3 and tier 4, but it adds a few more extra units just to give you a little bit more power, especially since knights can be fairly expensive with new armies until you get, you know, all the vows unlocked. So there's 2 units, as I said, and the first one is the Royal Men-at-Arms. These are the longbow variant. These you get a tier 4. So anti-infantry, decent stats all around, good range, 160, decent melee combat, so you can easily have them up in front if they run out of ammo, and they get flaming attacks too, which is going to be quite useful as, you know, flaming arrows, especially versus, say, anything with regen like Festus or, you know, a lot of the tree units that you'll be dealing with. This adds a little bit more firepower to you. Plus, it gives you an endgame archer, which, you know, is kind of nice to have something that just looks a little bit different and acts a little bit different, as you're normally stuck with a tier 1 unit from the very beginning, and it just, you know, it kind of just gets boring. And next we have the Royal Men-at-Arms. These are spear units, so, you know, shielded, anti-large, charge against all foes, good stats all around, and I find these to be quite useful when you're playing as Alberic in the middle of Lustria, because, you know, things are a little bit strange there, especially as you're dealing with so many different enemies that are usually large foes. So having a little bit of help is obviously very useful, and it does make it so you're just not using peasants all the time, which, yes, your army will still have peasants, but it's just nice to have variety. It's a big issue with Bretonnia in vanilla form. Okay, this is where things get a little bit more expanded. As I said, that you can get more units and different mechanics for Repanse when you start getting some submods, which are also linked in the description below. But it's important to note that this adds a few more units just to flesh out your roster even more and just give you some more variety, which is great. I actually really like this. So there's a new version of the Knights of the Realm unit, and that's a sword variant, which means that they lose the anti-large bonuses, but they get the anti-infantry bonus, which is quite useful, especially since you don't always want them with lances, you want just a different type of weapon, and yeah, it makes perfect sense to have variants, and it's kind of weird that we don't have them in vanilla. I mean, we have different variants when it comes to the different knights, but not the different units. Peasant Longbowman with light armor. So again, it's a normal style peasant bowman, but they've got a bit better armor. So obviously, if you want that variant, then you have it. And it's kind of like a nice throwback to the old school archers. Not the ones that were still available from 6th edition onwards, but the earlier ones from the 5th edition box, where they had the light armor look to them. So it just kind of looks nice, and it makes me nostalgic for an old box that I should really finish painting at this point. Royal Men-at-Arms with polearms. So yeah, these are units that you'd already have access to, the Royal Men-at-Arms, but not the polearm version, and obviously you want these because they're armor piercing, they're anti-large, they've got charge defense against large foes. They're very strong, and if you're looking for later game stacks, then these are the ones for you. It adds in a bit more flavor, and it gives you more variety. Like I said, variety is very, very important. And finally, for the foot troops, we have Grail Companions with great weapons. So these look quite grim, you know, I quite like the helmet style and everything. So yeah, heavy unit, very heavy armor. They've got access to armor piercing, anti-large, and they're a damage dealer. So you want these front and center just slapping their way across all the enemies that come in front of them. And yeah, I've really liked using them. They're a very, very good unit overall. Very good stats overall too. Magical attacks too, which is quite interesting. But definitely a better foot troop. And again, very useful for Alberic. I know I keep saying Alberic a lot, but he kind of needs the help. But that's not all. We have some new variants for the Trebuchet, which is always welcome considering that the Bretonnians have access to, well, just trebuchets when it comes to artillery. So here we have with flame projectiles. So that means that you're going to have a little bit better time fighting against stuff with regeneration, again, the trees and all that type of stuff. It's just nice to have extra because just having the two, I get the magical attack one is pretty good, but just having a little bit of a difference just makes the roster feel better. However, that's not the last one, as we do have cow projectiles. Yep, you can throw cows at your enemies, which is pretty fun. I love the idea of it. It also poisons the enemy, which I think is fantastic. I'm a big fan of this. It's I know, it's silly, but then again, we do have the cows being thrown off the Bretonnian towers. Many of us here have probably also played Stronghold, and you kind of missed that whole thing about throwing cows at your enemy. And yeah, it is just absolutely amazing. My aim could be better, mind you, it's just the fact that I'm moving small hordes there. But yeah, it's kind of fun. Now, if you want Repanse to be radically different from everyone else, well, you do have this second submod, which again is linked in the description below. This is the same author, by the way. Everything's from the same modder, and it's all linked up together. And you have the following faction effects, which are massive. So, Peasant Queen. Knight units cannot be recruited with the exception of Grail Knights and Questing Knights. Can recruit Dragon Slayer Squires, a unique peasant unit that does not count towards the peasant economy. I'll leave those for you later. Peasant economy plus 8 peasants available to the faction. Physical resistance plus 5% for all peasant units. Upkeep minus 15% for all non-knight units. Diplomatic relations minus 50 with Bretonnia. Control plus 3 for all provinces. Upkeep minus 50% for embedded heroes. Melee defense plus 5 for questing knights. Melee attack plus 4 for all peasant units. Armor plus 10 for all peasant units. Leadership plus 5 for all peasant units. Missile strength plus 10% for Trial Trebuchet units, upkeep plus 60% for all knight units, and diplomatic relations minus 80 with Vampire Counts, Vampire Coast, and Tomb Kings. That was a long one. Anyways, so yeah, this is going to drastically change your playstyle altogether, as you're going to be focusing on a peasant playthrough rather than knights. You can still get knights, but they're going to be very, very expensive, and you're not going to have access to all of them, and the idea is just to have like a proper sub-faction, which is just completely unique. I like this. I think it's pretty interesting. I played for about an hour or two, and it was different. It was definitely harder not having loads of glorious cavalry charges to kind of keep everything going, you know. It's very different when you can't cycle a lot, which, yeah, I kind of like. I think it adds in a breath of fresh air. There's a few other changes, and I'm going to let you discover them for yourselves, as honestly, this gives me a reason to play Bretonnia again, which I'm really, really hyped about, because I love Bretonnia. I'm not so keen the fact that they've suffered, but then again, they've suffered at the hands of GW too, so it just kind of fits. This is the problem when a 6th edition army and army book is used constantly in 8th. Yeah, like they had no updates whatsoever. Yeah, they had an FAQ, but that's pretty much it. It's why the army was kind of trash on the tabletop. But like I said, all 3 mods can be found in the description below. Keep in mind that you'll need the base mod to be able to use the 2 others, as they are submods. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start our discussion, and I wish you luck on the Crusades in the name of the lady.